What's up? What's up? What's up?
Mm. You caught me with my hand in the cooking jar, literally.
Literally. Oh
Mm.
Lord, I apologize that we are a few minutes late. That is my fault.
Don't blame me. I got off my
I just
line.
said it was my fault. I was
Mm.
trying to get some stuff done, so it is my fault. I did not. I didn't on purpose do the professor like that. I usually have us backstage, but I didn't. So literally, as soon as the countdown ended, we were up here. But welcome, everybody to another episode of the Teacher Project 2.0. We appreciate you guys being here. I am here, really BTV with my co-host ElTeddy 27, Dr. ElTeddy 27 in the house.
Hello, everyone. How art thou?
So how you doing this week? How are things going, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Remind me when we get off live. I gotta tell you something.
Okay. All right. So today, you guys, we're going to talk about a few things. One of the first things we're going to discuss, we're going to give you, as always, the doctor has the updates for us.
Not a lot of updates this week.
Right. Not a lot of updates. And then we'll get into some other things. So I'll let the doctor take care of that.
So, the last time we were on, I think my latest update was from March 5th, which was when Kate Brown, I believe she's governor of Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. She announced, about public schools, executive order at forcing public schools to open public elementary schools to reopen no later than March 29th for hybrid or full-time in-person instruction. That was the last time. And that 6 to 12 by April 19th. So March 8th, we had New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, that stated that they were schools there were required to begin providing at least 2 days of classroom instruction each week. Under the order, schools could switch to fully remote instruction for up to 48 hours without state approval. Governor Chris Sununu issued the requirement in a executive order. On March 9th, the New Mexico Public Education Secretary Ryan Stewart announced all schools and grade levels could return to classes if schools were able to establish the safety protocols the state outlined. Stewart also said schools were expected to return to 5 days a week in-person classes by April 5th. Previously, primary and secondary schools could open under a hybrid, but now 5 days a week in person. Mm-hmm. March 12th, Oregon Governor Kate Brown, who we mentioned earlier, came back and issued another executive order requiring public elementary schools to reopen no later than March 29th for hybrid or full-time in-person instruction. The order also requires public schools to open for grades 6 through 12 by April 19th. Parents can still keep their children in fully remote instruction. Also on March 12th, Washington State Governor Jay Inslee said he would issue an emergency proclamation requiring elementary schools to provide students at least 2 partial days of in-person instruction by April 5th. Inslee said schools had to provide older students the same by April 19th. As of March 15th, Inslee had not signed the proclamation, though. And my last update is from March 15th. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey put out an executive order requiring public schools to offer in-person instruction, which took effect on March 15th. High schools and middle schools in high transmission counties were exempt from the order. Parents could still keep their children in virtual classes. And in the state of California, Judge Cynthia Freeland issued a temporary restraining order preventing the state from enforcing the California's Safe Schools for All reopening framework through March 30th. The order temporarily lifted the state's partial closure. So, and what I want to say about what I just read, if you notice, my last one is March 15th. I believe um a couple days after that is when um Miguel Cardona was confirmed, and there's been not a lot that has gone on. I'm going to ask you your opinion on this, really, B. But what I'm going to say is, I do see a little pandering, even from the Democratic side, in that because the Democratic United States Secretary of Education has said that he wants to push the issue with regard to opening of schools. You now see some Democratic governors and state education authorities now forcing the issue as well. When I really feel like, had it been a Republican administration, they still would be pushing back. That's just how I feel on it. I don't know.
Okay, so say that again. If it were a Republican administration, you feel like the Democrats would be pushing back? Is that what you said?
Because if you remember, a lot of the Democratic states kept saying, "Nah, we're not ready. Nah, let's not open." And I don't think that's the only reason why. I think part of it is the vaccines and things like that. But I think that a lot of these Democratic states would have rolled it out to the end of the school year and said, "Okay, we'll be ready come this summer." Had it been, more of a Republican administration, but now that we have a Democratic administration, that the Secretary of Education is very adamant about, oh, we are going to open. And so now there's the acquiescing to that, whereas I don't know that they would have done that had it been the other way around. And maybe I might be wrong. I might be looking too far politically into that. I feel like they would have at least tried to go until the end of the school year and said, "We'll try again in summer."
I think it's a combination. I don't disagree, but I think I need to add a little bit more to it. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, well, now there's a Democrat in office and the Democrats are like, yay, yay, yay.
I think the vaccine plays into it.
Yeah, I think not only I think the vaccine plays into it, but not just the vaccine. I think also there's a level of confidence in leadership. Whereas opening schools under our former leadership that was trying to act like the coronavirus was no big deal, and you don't have to wear a mask if you don't want to, and you don't have to do this, and it's just drink some bleach and it'll be okay. I think there's a little bit of, we have a little bit more confidence in what we're seeing and where the leadership is coming from. I think it's a combination, but I agree that there is no pushback versus if there was still a Republican led Congress, administration. I think there would have been, but I think there's a combination. I agree though. I agree that, but I just feel like and also the leadership of the Department of Education. I mean, nobody had any respect for her. Nobody had any respect for what the president was saying. You know what I mean? I think there's the combination of those things, personally.
You want me to go over these new
the CDC guidelines? Do you want me to go, or I can go? I'm going to put the link in the chat. There's some new CDC guidelines that came out late last week.
They came out on the 19th.
Yeah.
We read last time we were on. We went through the CDC guidelines. We did. And here are the changes. There are 5 major changes to their guidelines. The first one is revised physical distancing recommendation to reflect at least 3 feet between students in classrooms and provide clearer guidance when a greater distance, such as 6 feet, is recommended. So they're moving from the 6 feet of social distancing to the 3 feet of social distancing. And CDC made it a point to say this is solely for schools and not for everything or everywhere else. Make that make sense. Then they said clarified that ventilation is a component of strategies to clean and maintain healthy facilities. They removed recommendations 4 physical barriers. And as much as the 3 feet was alarming, I found that one alarming as well. The fact they removed recommendations for physical barriers. And then they clarified the role of community transmission levels in decision making, what numbers should qualify as, the different levels where you need to be alarmed and perhaps consider whether or not to open back up. And then they put in added guidance on interventions when clusters occur. Those are the major changes to the guidelines. Your thoughts, really, be?
Now, here's where I would have to say, why? Like, is this now? Here's where I'm kind of like, okay, is it the pandering? Like, what is going? Why? What is the rush? Like, you already opening up schools. What is the rush to say, oh, well, not only are we going to open up all of the schools, y'all don't even have to take certain precautions anymore. Yeah, you don't have to 6 feet apart, and you don't have to put up barriers, and you don't have to do this, and you don't have to do that. And I'm just thinking, but why? Why are we going so fast so soon? You know what I'm saying? That's the part that just really is alarming to me. I don't understand why we're rushing this, because let's be clear. Let's get through the next 8 weeks of school, and then that gives everybody all summer. And if you want to do it for the fall and say, hey, we don't need to do this and we don't need to do that, and we can do this and we can do that. Okay, fine. But why do we have to rush to it right now? You know what I'm saying? Hello? Oh, I'm like, I didn't know I lost you. I'm sorry. My bad.
Yeah, I had somebody that called me, but so
but I don't know if you heard anything I just said. My fault. I don't know if you heard.
And here's my point on this. There's some pandering and there's some politics involved with this as well, because why would you say these guidelines are strictly for schools and not for other places, when schools are clearly some of the places that has the worst cases of lack of social distancing, or is one of the, if you wanted to think of a place where there could be super spreader events, a school is that place, because you have people on top of each other. You have people literally where you have masses of people in small confined spaces all of the time. So for you to say, oh, it's okay for you to be closer, oh, it's okay for you not to have restrictive barriers and for you to be breathing all on top of each other, then if you're going to put that out, CDC, I can see why the governors of Texas and Mississippi will come out and say, well, hell, we might as well open up then. You can't, I feel like you can't have it both ways. And if you're telling me that you have the science and the statistics to back that and support that, okay, I'm fine with that. But don't give it the cloak of something's up if you're going to say, but this is just for schools, when we know, okay, that's the worst place in order to, have these kinds of just. And you have the article really be the teachers unions are really pushing back on this. And let's be clear, as the United States of America, we have not been on the forefront of this virus at all. And how we approach the virus, there have been other countries and things that have been able to get past COVID. We are not one of them. And they were able to get past COVID without a vaccine.
I'm going to say this as someone, and this is something that I don't, a lot of people, if you don't like, okay, so DC is a heavy, for obvious reasons, it's heavy on federal employees. Right, for obvious reasons, we're the seat of the government, we're the capital of the country. They are not pressing adults to go back to work the way they're pressing for kids to be back in the buildings. And it seems to me like with like keep that same energy. If this is about getting back to normal and all of this, then keep that same energy. Why y'all ain't making the federal government open back up? Why y'all not? Why the state government isn't back open? I still am trying to get an appointment to go to the DMV because the state government is still closed except for like 2 days a week, and you know what I mean. So my thing is, y'all are pressing for schools to open back up. Once again, it is strictly for optics. It is strictly for political reasons to say we did it. It is not based on any level of science. It is not based on any level of this is what's best for kids. This is all about saying, well, we opened up schools to make parents' lives easier. Period.
And let's be clear, really, B. The last administration showed us and proved to us that the CDC can be strong-armed and pushed based on who's in power. And just like it can be pushed on the side that we don't care about, it can be pushed by the side that we, see it for as well, in ways that it should not be. And so this just does not pass the sniff test for me. I really have a problem with how this has come out, because literally you got the Secretary of Education confirmed, and he came right out and said, oh, we're going to have everybody back in school as quickly as possible. And now all of a sudden and they had just put out those guidelines not long. And now all of a sudden, oh, well, now we're going to make a couple corrections on that.
So let me read a little bit. This is an article. This is from CNN.com. Nappy Child. First of all, welcome Nappy Child. She is on the mod squad. So y'all welcome Nappy Child. Thank you so much for accepting the position. I appreciate it. But here is, I'm reading from an article from CNN.com. This is just an excerpt of it. The links are in the description if you want to go. And Nappy Child has been dropping the links in the chat. But so ElTeddy already read through the new guidelines. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a quote. At first glance, the change to 3 feet distance for students in classrooms will be particularly challenging for large urban school districts and those that have not yet had access to the resources necessary to fully implement the very COVID-19 mitigation measures that the CDC says are essential to safe in-person instruction, no matter how far apart the students in classrooms are. Many officials and parents have been eager to send students back to classes after a year of learning impacted by a global pandemic. And while the increase in vaccines has made people optimistic that a return to a sense of normalcy is near, health experts worry that variants could cause another surge. Students under 16 years old are unlikely to be eligible for vaccines for several more months. With 80% of schools now offering some kind of in-person instruction, according to the AFT, there has been progress in reopening classes, and with more widespread vaccines available, that number should increase. The AFT said Friday it will reserve judgment on the change in guidelines until more information is available, but it expressed concern over the motivation might have been to accommodate schools without the space for 6 feet distance rather than science-backed safety. And I am going to say I agree 100% that I feel like that number was lowered to appease schools that were having a hard time with the 6 feet mandate. I told you about my school at the beginning of the year. We got a 500 and something page document that outlined what the policy was going to be when we opened up school. They have already reneged on some of the major parts of that policy. The first one being everybody was going to have their temperature taken as they walked in the door. They're no longer doing that.
But if you remember, really, B, when we started all of this, we kept screaming from the rafters, how is this going to be possible for you to open? We kept saying there's no feasible way to reopen schools for in-person instruction and really do what you need to do to fight this virus the way you want to. And let's be clear. the CDC and experts still don't even know if the vaccines that are being given out work for the variants, which are now being spread widely.
Well, I'm gonna tell you
And
what. So
more
yesterday we had a faculty meeting, and two things that I'm not gonna say who said it, just in case people figure out where I work. But two things that were said in the meeting. The first thing that was said in the meeting was our numbers. Remember, I told you guys that the numbers, they said that we were going to have about 700 kids come back to the building. Well, those numbers have dropped to less than 300 kids coming into the building. You divide that in half because they're not going to, they're going to do half and half. So basically, we're down to less than 150 kids in the building on any given day. So you're going to do all of this. You're going to spend all of these resources, spend all of this money, spend all of this effort for less than 150 kids a day. Out of for my school, we have an enrollment of over 2,000 students. So out of 2,000 students, only 300 of them are showing up. And that's just what have signed up. We already have parents who are calling in saying, I changed my mind. I said that I was going to let my child come back hybrid, but I changed my mind. They're not coming back. They're going to continue to be virtual. So we've been getting that. The other thing that I thought was interesting was somebody in the meeting, someone in a position of power in the meeting said yesterday that basically all it's going to take is for one kid to show up that has been exposed to COVID, and it's going to shut the school down. Because on the high school level, the students are changing classes. The teachers aren't moving, which is what the original plan was, is that we would move classroom to classroom to limit the amount of movement in the building. Oh, but we're not going to do that. So all it's going to take is for one kid to show up and go to, because we're doing a regular schedule, to go to all 4 of their classes, including lunch, including went to the bathroom, including rode on the school bus to get there. And it's going to basically shut the building down. So,
but here it really be, we knew, even the notion, them thinking in their brains that they were going to move teachers. When you get to the high school level, that's impossible.
And that's why we're not doing it.
Have the same schedule.
That's why we're not doing it.
No way possible for you to say, I'm going to have this 15 students and they're going to have all the same classes and all of the same teachers. It's not possible.
And remember, my school, I have a very unique school. We have a performing arts program. We also have a vocational program. So we have barbering and we have cosmetology. We have HVAC and plumbing and automotive. And we also have, dancing and choir. So like our school is all over the place. Like people's schedules are ridiculous.
Classes really be, think about, some students come in with already high school credits, whereas some students come in being remedial.
Because we also have the IB program in my building.
Right. There's no way you could talk about, I'm gonna just have these students stay in one class. They don't have all of the same classes. It just does not happen. So there would be no feasible way for you to say, we just go. Now on the elementary level, perhaps you could do that. But once you get to middle school and definitely high school, it's just no way to do that. And so now we have this situation where y'all are just trying to check a box and say that we did that, not knowing that, you might be doing more harm than you're doing good.
Right. So that's what that is, you guys. Yeah. And again, I have yet to meet, out of all of my friends who have kids in school, not one of them has said to me, I'm sending my kid back to school. And that doesn't mean that there aren't any. That just means none of my friends have said to me, I'm sending my kids back. They're all like, no, they're just going to stay home until the fall. And my district is having a full summer school program this year.
Mind you, all of the pharmaceutical companies say it's definitely not going to be until the fall, until the very first vaccines for students under 16. And there's only one right now. I think Pfizer is the only one approved for 16 and 17-year-olds. The only one. So, and Pfizer is the least accessible one because wherever you go, they have to have the freezers and stuff to keep it at the temperatures that is needed for it to be effective. And so with ones like Moderna, which is pretty good, is as good as Pfizer, doesn't need that type of equipment and stuff to keep it cold. It does. They haven't said that one works. The Johnson and Johnson haven't said that was work. I think the AstraZeneca is supposed to be. It's just people trying to be able to say, "Oh, we did it. We did it. We did this. We did that."
That's all it is. It's just so that they can say we did it. That's it. That's all.
And you're playing with people's lives, because the dangerous part when people start to talk about schools, they always have one thing in mind: students. That's all they think about, neglecting the fact that there are so many adults that work in and around these, not just in the building, but in support of the school system, crossing guards, school bus drivers. You're even talking about the local neighborhood stores and things that are stakeholders in schools, because they are directly affected by what happens in those schools. Now you're talking about traffic situations. It is whatever. Who am I? I'm preaching to the choir. Hey, everybody in the chat.
All right, you guys. So let's revisit let's just do an update and revisit something we spoke on last week before we move on to two of our I guess bigger stories that we wanted to cover today. Department of Education and
I did see a story that came out today that I wanted to introduce to you, but it goes with something we're talking about as well.
Okay. Cardona stands firm on standardized testing mandate amid criticism. So, after more than 500 education researchers asked Education Secretary Miguel Cardona not to force school districts to administer federally mandated student standardized tests this year, Cardona said Tuesday that policymakers needed the data obtained from the exams. Appearing at the 2021 Legislative Conference, he said, as the department has already given, was the right thing to do. One size does not fit all, he says. But he said student data obtained from the test was important to help education officials create policy and target resources that where they are most needed. When federal funding is distributed to states, he says, we have to make sure we are laser focused on addressing inequities that have existed for years. Every bit of data helps. And I dropped the link in the chat, so the article continues to go further. But we talked about this last week, and this is one of the topics where ElTeddy and I disagree when it comes to testing. We don't agree when it comes to testing about certain things. But he's doubled down on us doing testing this year.
Now, what I'm going to tell you that came out today goes in line with this, and you're going to be very surprised. But I'm going to let you continue.
No, go ahead. I said it. Go ahead.
So ranking members of the education committees in both the House and the Senate submitted letters to Miguel Cardona about the waivers for standardized testing, the ESSA waivers. ESSA is ESSA for people in the chat. That's Every Student Succeeds Act that Obama passed that overrode Nickleby. When Nickleby went out, ESSA came in. And Obama did that in 2015. And essentially what it did was Nickleby was heavy federal. I sound like James. Federal. But what ESSA did was it puts more rights into the states and allowed states more flexibility to how they would categorize success with schools and different things like that. So it relaxed a lot of the hard and rigid Nickleby things. And so these Republican congressmen are telling Cardona, hey, y'all out here trying to keep people from getting waivers, and we're telling you that you can't do that. That when we passed ESSA back in 2015, there were strategic reasons why you could not give waivers. And some of the reasons that you're coming out and saying that these people can't have a waiver aren't valid. And likewise, on the other foot, some of the people who you are giving waivers to are not valid either. Or I think I said that backwards, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand.
And so they are definitely pushing back on Cardona, on the Department of Education, because they said any letter that is submitted to your office with regard to a waiver needs to come through our committees. And we need to see it, and we need to make sure that it follows the letter of the law, and that the ESSA these ESSA waivers are valid, and that they're truly following what it was that the law says. So he is getting pushback from these Republican congressmen because there are some Republican states that are asking for waivers, and they're being met with resistance. And so yeah, I found that interesting that I saw that they submitted those letters today.
Yeah, I mean,
and so those people did not know Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina is the ranking member for the Senate, and Representative Virginia Foxx is the ranking member for the House.
Nappy Child, that article you just dropped, is that from today? Is that what ElTeddy's talking about? You know, Nappy Child be on top of it, honey. My thing is this. I just know I can't speak for every school district throughout this United States. I was getting ready to take your line, ElTeddy, the yet to be United States, but I can speak for my county. And so what I mean by that okay, thank you, Nappy Child. What I mean by my county is I know that based on the things that have, because here's the other thing you have to look at. And again, I'll speak for myself. We have made so many allowances for students this school year. And I'm not going to go down the road of the kids are dealing with a lot and it's been very stressful on them and they're dealing with trauma and blah, blah, blah. All of that's valid. I'm not arguing those points. But what I'm saying is so many allowances have been given to students this year as far as what they have to do as students and their responsibilities as students. I do not see how the data is going to be valid. And I know we had this conversation already. Do I feel like that I understand that under normal circumstances, I get testing. I don't always like it, but I get it. But I'm saying under these circumstances, with this going on, knowing that even schools who went back, oh, thank you. That's as of 4:10 p.m. So that's the PM edition from yesterday. The 22nd was Tuesday. Okay. So even under the best of conditions, under COVID, I know some schools been back in the building all year. I get it. But even those schools that have been back in the building all year, still are not normal working conditions. And so I know, like I said, I can speak for myself. We've basically been told that we can't fail nobody. I mean, well, no, that's a lie. Let me not put it that way. So many allowances have been given that if you fail and you just want to fail, let me put it that way. Kids can fail, so let me not say that they can't fail. And so that's just where I am with it. I get testing. I understand testing and why it exists and what it's about and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, really though? Anyway, I feel like I already said all of this. I feel like I already said it. It just frustrates me though. It just frustrates me because I was like, y'all just it's like the contradiction. It's just to me, it's like, we know that everything is different. So we're going to bend over backwards and give all of these excuses to students and parents, but we're going to still hold you to the same standards as if this were a regular school year. So figure it out.
Really I'll be right back. My mom is calling. I'll be right back.
Okay, handle it. I will say this though, you guys. my district has waived certain exams that are under their purview to waive. So they can't, of course, they haven't been able to waive the federal, but a lot of the district tests that students have to take, they did waive those. So they won't be as much pressure on students. They waived in my district, students have to have a certain amount of hours of service of community service. They've waived those. They waived that criteria because, of course, who the hell was doing community service the last year and a half, So they've waived a lot of those types of things. But the stuff that's federal, it's like, I just don't understand the mindset. Hey, Lock Queen, how you doing? All right. We'll wait for while we wait for ElTeddy to come back, let me read you guys the next article. So there's been some curriculum proposals that have come out over the last week or so. So we have one coming out of Florida and one coming out of California. I'm gonna read the one out of Florida first because we know Florida is always special. We're gonna read Florida first because we know that Florida is always special. All right. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declares that his new civics education proposal will expressly exclude critical race theory. All right. This is coming from theroot.com. Let me drop the link in the chat. And let me read you a little bit of this. Okay. Oh, okay. On Wednesday, the governor of voter suppression and making pandemics worse unveiled, this is the Root, so there's going to be some sarcasm in here, child. Unveiled his proposal for civics education curriculum for Florida schools, which he said will expressly exclude critical race theory, excuse me. Before I get too deep into this, here's what white people need to understand. CRT isn't some new progressive fad that suddenly started trending on social media. It's not new just because white conservatives are just now discovering it. It's a concept that has been around since 1989 officially, and one that has been developed through the ideas of research that date back to the 1960s and 70s. White fragility clearly prevents Republicans like DeSantis and former President Trump from looking into the decades of research that has gone into the teachings of CRT. So here's a little info on it that's reported by Time Magazine. I'm not going to read all of that. Go find the article. I want to get to the part about Florida. Okay. Now back to DeSantis. This is a letter that he wrote. So this is a quote. A high quality education begins with a high quality curriculum, which is why we're going to be laser focused on developing the best possible civics instruction standards. Let me check to see if ElTeddy's back. Okay, he's back. All right. ElTeddy, I'm reading the article about Ron DeSantis, your favorite governor. Okay. Florida civics curriculum will incorporate foundational concepts with the best materials, and it will expressly exclude unsanctioned narratives like critical race theory and other unsubstantiated theories. Now, mind you, I just read to you that the theory has been researched since the 1960s. So to say that it's unsubstantiated is, but DeSantis continues saying there is no room in our classroom for things like critical race theory, and that teaching kids to hate their country and to hate each other is not worth 1 red cent of taxpayer money. He added that the state will instead invest in an actual solid, true curriculum and will be a leader in the development and implementation of a world-class civics education. I'm going to leave that. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to leave it right there. Like I said, that came from theroot.com if you want to go and finish the article. But I'm going to drop it right there on you, ElTeddy. Give it to me.
I have been at the forefront of this for a few months now. Y'all know I've been calling this stuff out on Silly Saturdays and on some of my politics talks as these things have been coming out. And I told you all that this stuff would start to roll out around the country. We talked about this with the 1619 project and so forth, and how that, your president tried to go against that and so forth. And there's this rewriting of history, and I here's what's going to end up happening. Here's what's going to end up happening. It's going to happen whether or not we want it to. Let's be clear.
Do you think? Do you think so?
I really do, because a lot of this is, and let me tell you why I say that.
Mm-hmm.
Education is not a federal thing. It's definitely a statewide situation. And so when you talk about students that go to public schools, and the public schools in your respective state have pretty much said, we ain't going down that road, we're not teaching slavery, what's going to end up happening is the true story of what happened to Black people, and even the story of slavery. I can see, not in recent future, but maybe years and years, as this continues to matriculate, becomes almost like conspiracy theory fodder, where it's like, no, well, I went to school, mama, and they told me that's not how it went, so I'm gonna believe the school because they're the ones who you sent me to learn from. Whereas we know that they are clearly giving misinformation, revisionist history. And so that's why I say that it could become a whole generational thing where you got younger generations looking at us like, what y'all complaining about? America been good to us. When we know good and hell well, it ain't like that. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer and be a pessimist and think that it could go to that, go there, but it is. It's already happening. You have the state of Texas is already, and Oklahoma have already started state adoption processes for textbooks that have these things written out of the textbooks. And so it would almost be like, I was going to give an example with the doctor. I was going to say it would be like you going to your doctor saying, oh, COVID is not real. You don't go to your doctor for your doctor to tell you that. You go to your doctor for your doctor to tell you the truth. It's real. This is what it is. You need to be concerned. And when you are a child and you go to school and you look to learn the history of what happened, you trust that the school is the authority and going to tell you the history as it really was. You don't believe that they're going to sit up here and give you revisionist history when that's already been going on, even when we were in school, really be. And I think that it's just going to intensify now. But we know the revisionist history of America's past has been going on since we've been in school. A mess.
Well, the only reason why I hesitate, and your points are valid. I heard you and your points are valid. The only reason why I hesitate is because I feel like, and I'm not saying that just because the Democrats are in charge, everything is perfect, because Lord knows I don't feel that way. But what I'm saying is, I feel like some of the momentum, I'm not saying that there won't be states like Texas and Florida that will continue to move forward, but I feel like some of the momentum might switch is what I'm saying. But I will say this. Well, go ahead.
I would venture to tell you, if you look at the other side, they are emboldened. They are strong. They have been invigorated to a level that you wouldn't have even thought that they would be at. They are almost rabid with their intent on establishing their supremacy and dominance and so forth. And so if that means that we rewrite history, oh, absolutely. That's all you need me to do? Okay, great. And I will venture to say, and you know how these things go, really be, when the state puts things in curriculum, you wait till the first Black teacher go in their classroom, and you got a state like a Texas and Oklahoma. You wait till that first Black teacher goes in there and says, oh, I'm going to do my own little lesson about slavery, and see how fast they down at the district giving answers. And now you got to get unions involved. In Texas, don't even have unions. That's where we're going, because we had the same situation with creationism and Darwinism. It's scary to think. And you being a social studies teacher, social sciences teacher, really be, I would be afraid for,
Well, my experience as a social science teacher, I've never taught in a Republican conservative place. So I've never really had that issue. I've always serviced majority minority students. So me going outside of the curriculum was always welcomed. So for me, you know what I'm saying?
But I mean, but we can't live in bubbles either. We got to think about
no. I get that. What I get what you're saying. No, what I'm saying is the example you were using. That's what I'm thinking, because again, it's not that I don't understand that there are other people who struggle with these things across the country. I'm thinking about working in that environment is what I'm saying. I guess
I'm gonna give you an example that I went through, and this wasn't down that level, but something that I got in trouble for and pushed back on. When I first, in my early years of teaching, there were district mandates that said all English teachers had to teach that every essay had to be a 5-paragraph essay, as if that's the only form of essay that there is, and every paragraph must have 5 sentences. Like, it was formulaic writing, and that was the only thing. If you didn't teach to their formula or how they designed it, then you had to go sit in people's offices and give some answers. And I sat in offices and I gave, and we're talking about something, as simple as essay writing, where for all intents and purposes, the impact isn't as great with that as it is with you reteaching history and ignoring, well, it could be if you don't know how to write an essay. But you get what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying? And so
yeah, but go ahead.
I kind of, what I'm saying is, I know what those conversations are like when you are legitimately doing your job, which is to educate and edify and teach the subject material, and then you got people not even certified in your subject area, not even teaching, then telling you, no, you can't teach that, even though I know you are the expert and you know that's the right thing to teach, but I'm telling you, you're not allowed to teach that. Get over it, change your lesson plans, get it out of there. Because so what do I do if I'm a teacher in rural Texas? I'm a black teacher. I got black kids out here that I'm teaching, and they tell me, well, you better not teach no slavery. Oh, no. What do you do?
Do it anyway.
Do what teachers always do: close your door and do what you
do
got
it
to
anyway.
do.
I was gonna say do it anyway.
Because so many teachers, we do that all the time.
Right, because I'm gonna say this, and I understand your point. Like, I get it. I get the point. But I'm just saying, like, so growing up, slavery was addressed in the textbooks that we had growing up, but the atrocities of slavery were not necessarily addressed. It was whitewashed. It was glossed over. It was, Harriet Tubman, and Frederick Douglass. We didn't learn about the Nat Turners. We didn't learn about the level of atrocity and things of that nature. I mean, we were taught, again, it depended on where you were and all that good stuff. But then there was a shift. That pendulum shifted. And curriculum started evolving, and it started digging deeper, and it started getting into the Nat Turners, and I keep throwing that out as an example. But then so I feel like this is just another pendulum shift. But I feel like, again, I'm not saying absolutely. I'm not saying this is going to be a 100% thing, because let's be clear. don't think any curriculum has it right when it comes to our history. I just don't think they do. Not on an American history level or a world history level. Now, in a more
absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Right. So,
but to write it out completely.
Yeah, this is coming from a social studies teacher. Story. I've been on textbook committees and all of that. I have looked at more social studies textbooks, U.S. history, world history, whatever. I have looked at, and none of them, and so that's just like, for example, my district, and me and you were talking about this, my district has decided they're going to add LGBTQIA history to our curriculum, right? You know what that is, right? You know what that looks like right now. It's Stonewall. That's it. That's all. It's Stonewall and it's the AIDS epidemic. That's it. That's all. So it's like gay people didn't exist till the 1970s. You know what I'm saying? And so it's the same thing with women's history with our curriculum, the way it's written now. You have the suffragists in the 1900s that got us the right to vote, and then Gloria Steinem. Ain't shit happened in between. And it's like, so that's what I mean when I say I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not lessening or minimizing the impact of this, but I guess as a teacher I felt like I've always had to do that. It's like they don't care about getting it right. And with testing, and this is part of the reason, I've said this before, this is part of the reason why I have such an issue with testing, because under the pendulum shifted with testing when it was no longer about curriculum and it was about comprehension. So, for example, when I was told that my subject matter wasn't important, I just had to make sure that the kids could read and understand what they were reading and be able to answer the questions. To me, that's reading comprehension. That's not about content. You don't care whether my kids know U.S. history. You care whether they can read an excerpt from a primary source or a secondary source and be able to interpret what they read. You don't care whether they learned it or not. And so that is like been my struggle for the last 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Well, let's go ahead. I'm going to say that. We're going to get to the
biggest apprehension with everything about this is this. It's one thing for you to say the curriculum is underrepresented and underserved, than to say it's not there at all. And then when it's not there at all, it becomes the responsibility of the parent to do that. And so many of our own Black people don't know our history because of it being underserved and underrepresented in schools. So they can't even educate their own children of what it is that has happened. And so then what will end up happening is when you don't have your history, when there's the rewriting of history or there's the ignorance to your history, then you settle for things or you miss things along the way that should have been obvious. Things start to happen and you go, wait a minute, you didn't see that coming, or you didn't know that that was possible. And the reason that it happens is because they had no clue. They're ignorant to the fact that these things happen. It's almost like when we talked about yesterday with the live, we talked about the conversation that they had at the end of Queen Sugar, where Blue was like, well, my teacher told us everybody's good. There are no bad people, because if you have no knowledge that there are bad people, then you don't even know to look for bad people, and that could, or you don't even know that the bad person's out there, and that could have catastrophic repercussions if you're not knowing there's something out there that could be possibly to take you out. I don't know, I went down a whole long road that I probably shouldn't have went down. You know how I get when I get on these topics.
No, it's cool, because we're going to end on a good note, because we brought you that, but now we're going to end on a good note. So this is also coming from the root.com. Let me drop the link in the chat. All right, I'm going to read you guys a little bit of this article. While Republican-run states like Florida are proposing statewide educational curricula that will expressly exclude critical race theory, This is coming from the root, so y'all know the root don't care. Because of a lot of white people in power are fragile.
They don't be caring at the root. I love their writers.
The
They
root
do
don't
not
care.
care.
California has adopted the nation's first statewide ethnic studies high school curriculum, and one that doesn't shy away from discussing things like police brutality and systematic racism in America. The Associated Press reports that on Thursday, members of the California State Board of Education unanimously approved the curriculum with hopes that it would clear a path for states across the country to follow. But the effort to give high school students access to an education that doesn't center whiteness above all didn't come without plenty of hurdles. And so then the article goes on to just talk about, all of the things that they went through. It's a 900-page ethnic studies model, which has been years in the making and is meant to teach high school students about the struggles and contributions of historically marginalized people, which are often untold in U.S. history classes. It centers on the four groups that are the focus of college-level ethnic studies: African Americans, Chicano, Latinos, Asian Americans, and Pacific Islanders and Native Americans. The curriculum also includes lesson plans that revolve around Jewish people, Arab nations, Sikh Americans, and Armenian Americans, all of whom have important stories to tell about oppression and contributions. Right now, America is in the midst of a racial awakening that started with the nationwide anti-racism and anti-police brutality protests. And then it goes on to talk about the shooting last week in Georgia. And then it gives you more details on, there are 33 lesson plans in all. This is definitely an education that America's youth needs and one that students should have always had access to. Hopefully, California is only the first state to take this step towards racial truth in education. This curriculum is sorely needed across the nation. And I think because I had already read that article, I think that maybe where some of my optimism was coming from with that last article. Again, I'm not saying that California has the magic wand and that it's going to be perfect and that everybody's going to adopt it. But I guess my mindset is there's a little bit of light here. It's not all gloom and doom. Yes, we still have the Texas and the Floridas of the world, but I guess I walk away and I'm glad I want to end it there, that we have a little bit of light, a little bit of positivity to say, hey, people are trying to put this effort in place, and there are some school districts that are saying we know we have to do better. Go ahead, ElTeddy.
And in the doing better, I think that those of us who know better should do better. We have to sometimes be the voice for our families, because like I said to you earlier, there may be children in your family that live in a household where they don't know our history, and they aren't as well versed on educating children on that. So when you get it in a place where you do have their ear, or you can be around members of your own family and you can really give them some sound, teachers and stuff on the history of us as a people, don't neglect the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Because California, I mean, all of us can't afford to live out in California. It costs a lot of money, and to live out there, you know what I'm saying? So kudos to them for certainly putting this in place. But the majority of the country lives in other places, and Florida and Texas are two of the top 5 in terms of population states in these yet to be United States of America. So then I think that because many of us are wanting to know more of our history and becoming more well versed on that, we have to continue to put it out there and educate the youth of what's out there. I love what I see sometimes on social media where there is this educating and bringing things to light in terms of the history, saying, oh no, it wasn't just this person, it was this person as well, and it was this person as well, and this person as well. And I think that's needed, because students today don't just learn in the classrooms. Students today learn like we used to learn in the streets back in the day, because you was always in the neighborhood playing and stuff with your friends. Now students learn through social media, sometimes faster than they learn in the classroom or even out in the street. So social media teaches them everything they need to know. So we definitely need to and at a young age. It starts very young because if you come up to your 14 and 15-year-old telling them, okay, sit down, let me tell you what's going on, they're gonna look at you like, I don't have that kind of time. And so I think that you got to be wise in how you approach it and what you do. And even if you do go to your 14 and 15-year-old, you might want to introduce them to something or someone in a subject area that they care about. Or like one thing I do with my older the young boys in my family that are older, I go with football first. I always, we talk about, oh, who's the best this, dot, and that will open up the opportunity for me to introduce them to other, great football players and their stats and things like that. And so now that that door is wedged and open, I can introduce other subjects or other people that are away from that, because now I have their ear, and now they can trust that what I'm telling them um, is valuable or is accurate, and there's some validity to it. So there are ways to do it. So it's not all gloom and doom, but certainly we have to take the reins of teaching our own history, and we have to be
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the ones that do that.
Yeah. Well, you guys, once again, I want to thank you guys for being here. I appreciate everybody who was here, everybody who contributed, participated, who shared out the live, who told a friend that told a friend that told a friend. We thank you guys so much. As always, feel free to send us articles that are of interest, things that, let me give you guys the email address again. But anything that you guys come across, me, ElTeddy and myself just sort of send articles back and forth to each other throughout the week.
I do work over here. I don't want y'all to think I don't do nothing over here. I do.
No. I don't mean you don't work. I'm just saying, we see something,
No. I'm saying work on the channel. I do contribute to the
Oh
channel.
no, he does. Yeah. No, I said we send articles back and forth to each other.
Oh, okay.
I know I said that. I know I said back and forth. I know I said that. Matter of fact, 3 of the articles from today, ElTeddy sent me. Moving on. But thank you guys for coming through. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you have not liked the video, please like the video. We're definitely trying to increase our viewership and increase our footprint out here in the YouTube sphere. So definitely please do that. And then I'm done. Final words, Dr. ElTeddy.
As we always say, please be vigilant with the education of yourself and your children and those people who you influence. Be very vigilant about that. Never, give up on pushing forward with that, because it's important. It has lifelong lasting effects to you as a person and them as a person. So definitely always do that. We're always here. Please continue to forward a subject matter and questions or that you have for us to discuss, because we love doing research and looking this stuff up. So that's all we got. Till next time.
Bye.